Let me know if you guys can see my screen here.
Yes, I can see
I can say it.
Great, great. All right. Yeah, so yeah, we're just going to talk through, see what the class is going to look like. I know. So once again, my name is Ife but everyone calls me Ife. I currently work as an Agile project manager slash Scrum Master at one of the African unicorns in I'm based out of Nigeria. We have an office in the UK as well, but yeah, but we're based out of Nigeria. I've been doing this for a while, and but mostly centered around technology. I have a computer science background, but my work experience has been based around finance and technology, and then recently fintech, right? So which is more or less the norm in Africa and this part of the world. So yes. I mean, so just to ask, anyone here have some project management experience? Anyone at all?
Yes. Hello.
Yes, go ahead, Tokumo.
I have a little idea, but not really. Not okay. I know small about Jira, and I'm learning Azure now, so I don't know it. I don't know it
Okay.
professionally. Let me say I don't know it professionally.
All right. Yeah, I mean, so Jira is a tool for managing projects and tasks in project management. I will hopefully before our next class, school would have set everyone's Jira account up, and then we'll take it from there, right? So we'll do a little delve into project management. So we'll look at initiating, planning, execution, closing, and monitoring and closing. See what project management I did is about, and then we'll start to dive deep into what Agile project management is about. So mostly when you hear Agile is something it's usually two of two things at this level, right? It's called Scrum and Kanban, right? So Scrum is basically an iterative process for you to be able to build products, right? And especially technology and software products, looking at the software delivery lifecycle and the rest. So we'll also create some sort of hypothetical projects where we will I like everyone to be involved. Someone will take the position of Scrum Master, the product owner, and the rest will take case of a product team. Right? So I will share all the descriptions of what all of those project means. All of those roles means. We'll take a look at each of the roles, what a product manager does, or a product owner, what a Scrum Master does, also certifications that are available, and then what the development team does as well. We'll take a look at how to use Jira. You guys have already been onboarded on Slack, so we'll take a look at that as well. Trello is mostly for Kanban boards. I'll ask the school to set that up as well. Yeah, so week one we'll take a look at what so just overview of what project management is, what Agile methodologies exist, the manifestos, the things that we should do where Agile is concerned, Scrum fundamentals, basics, and then we'll look for try and get a project charter for an hypothetical Agile projects, right? Then we'll start to look at Scrum roles, what the Scrum Master does, what the product owner does, what the development team does, responsibilities, expectations, how they function, and then we'll start to develop a team structure for the project, see who our Scrum Master is, you get to read up on what you do, product owner, development team, and then also look at the responsibilities as well. After that, we'll start to look at the artifacts, right? So artifacts basically means the things that happen within Scrum or within your project, right? So we look at the product backlog, And then we look at the sprint backlog. You hear those words a lot: product backlog, sprint backlog. And then we create. We would have decided on a hypothetical project, and we'll create a product backlog using. All right, so yeah, so I was saying that you hear, items like product backlog, sprint backlog, deployment, delivered, um, a lot, right? So so let's we'll take a deep dive into what those mean, what the product backlog is, what the sprint backlog is, what an increment is, and how to manage these things, especially with Jira, right? And then we'll see who is responsible for what. So, how about your hand is up? Do you have a question? All right. Yeah, so we'll take a look at all of those, and then we'll build up on that.
Oh, sorry. No question. We lost your audio, and
Yes, sorry.
I was wondering if it's just my end.
Yeah, I got kicked out for a bit. Sorry. All right. Yeah, so we'll look at the Scrum ceremonies, right? So we'll look at what the sprint review is. The sprint review is basically just another word for a sprint demo, right? Basically what that means is what in that process that we did, whether a 2-week period, a 3-week period, or 4 weeks period, what did we achieve, right? And must have skipped that. Sorry. Yeah, that one must have been skipped. Sorry. But so yeah, so it's still going to be so that that's Mastering Scrum ceremonies for part 1 and part 2. So part 1 will look at backlog grooming. Once again, the word backlog comes up. Backlog grooming, sprint planning, and then maybe, yeah, so those are the 2 main events. So backlog grooming and then sprint planning. Your backlog grooming basically means, taking a look at all the items on your backlog. Don't worry, you hear me say backlog a lot. We'll take a look at it, and then we'll see what it means, so that when you start to get interviews, when they ask you what the backlog means or how you handle backlogs, you can easily answer those questions, and then you're not just saying the buzzwords, right? And then we look at the review and retrospective session. So your review session is basically what was done, and then before you take it to production, people review that stuff, and then you take it into production, you make it go live, right? The retrospective is basically looking back at what you guys achieved in the past 3 to 4 weeks, and what did you learn, what went well, what didn't go well, what should we do better in the next sprint, and all of that, right? And then we look at estimation techniques. So we'll look at, planning poker and t-shirt sizing. The popular one is t-shirt sizing, right? Basically, your t-shirt sizes, so extra small, medium, large, extra large, and then sometimes you assign days to do it. So basically what that means is a developer looks at the tasks and say, let's assume Mo is one of our developers, and then we say, Mo says, okay, I'm looking at this task. It's going to take me, this looks like a small task, right? So it doesn't look like you first of all set like set a baseline in the sense that you look at all the tasks on the board, and then you say, okay, look, this one will take me a day or 2 to fix, or it will take me 2 to 3 days to fix, and then you use that to gauge the other tasks that come along. Because when you are building a feature or a product, right, you don't develop everything at once. You take them you take it one step at a time. Right, so you deliver something in 2 weeks. So every time you go into your app store, every time you see an app, every now and then you hear that there's an app update. There's an update on this app. Do you want to update? Or sometimes the app just updates without you knowing, right? As the case for GTB last year. So Yes, so you look at those tasks and say, okay, out of all these 10 tasks, let's establish a baseline, right? And that baseline might be maybe a task that will take you just a day or two. So every other task after that will now be used to compare. Is task A bigger than task B, or is task B bigger than task A, right? So you use that to determine how what size you give that. Do you give it a small? Do you give it a medium? Do you give it a large? Do you give it an extra large? Right. And then after that, we'll start to, you'll be assigned, projects to handle. And then I'll be with you throughout all those periods as well to handle those projects as we go along. Yeah, so any questions as we so yeah, typically job roles as you explore your project manager, especially if you stay in Agile, you'll most likely be looking at Scrum Master roles, an Agile coach, a product owner, if you do traditional project management. But in the UK, I found out that the Agile industry is seriously growing, so you get to see a lot of Scrum Master roles. I mean, if you go into LinkedIn alone and then just type out Scrum Master, right, you see a ton of roles coming up. So let me show you an example. So if I go to, let me share my screen from this. Okay. All right. So let me share this. So if I come here and I say Scrum Master, right. Let me know if you guys can see this so I can. Can you guys see the search?
Yes. Yes.
Great. So yeah, so if you just great. So so this is me just looking for Scrum Master jobs, and then I can say past week, and then it shows me it's one result. Most of the time, because of the way this was 2 days ago, this was 1 day ago, 16 hours ago, 20 hours ago. Agile project manager, Scrum Master, senior Agile project manager. You're literally going to be having so you see proven experience in Agile project management, stakeholder management, technical background, depending if you're a technical engineer, Scrum process, understanding of Jira, Scrum. Basically, that's it. So I mean, it's so the jobs are there. It's just you having the knowledge and the understanding to be able to do this. And sometimes they might not come out like this. You might get it as a delivery manager, which is pretty popular in the UK as well. And you can see so software project manager, project delivery manager, and yeah. So if you have an existing project management approach, work closely with product, marketing, and tech to ensure project roadmaps. So basically, so it's not a Scrum Master role, it probably be a delivery manager role. Or, sometimes they interchange that, but without saying the delivery and project management role is pretty popular in the UK, and there are always a lot of jobs open for around the place. I know. So one of the things you also want to try to take along is so your skills, what you do, are not totally irrelevant, right? And why do I say that? I know Deborah is a nurse. I'm not sure if we have any other nurse on the call. So anybody else in us?
Yeah.
Mo is in us as well,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, the skills that you've learned on the job are not, they are not totally relevant. And what do I mean, right? So I know as nurses, you tend to do a lot of communication with patients, right? I hope I'm correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that you'll be taking that along as well, right? So you'll be able to communicate with stakeholders. So as project managers or scrum masters or delivery managers, you basically sit in the middle, right, between the different stakeholders, between your product owner, product manager, and maybe some external stakeholders as well. So in my team, I tend to interface with I work directly with the CTO, so obviously I have to interface with the CTO, but I also work with the engineering manager, the guys in commercial, the guys in revenue generation, because they want to be able to know what's happening, and then when a particular feature that they need to generate revenue is going to go live, right? So so that's a lot of communication, that's a lot of stakeholder management, which you're also doing as a nurse as well. So all of those skills will come into bear, right? So also your emotional intelligence will come into play as well. I mean, so as a nurse, you're not expected to shout at a patient, especially in saner climes. I believe that's correct, no?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, so that comes into play as well. You need to be able to manage your emotions and manage people
Yeah.
across different cadres. So that's not lost on you. So we'll look at the few skills, for you to succeed as a project manager, right? Anybody else that is not a nurse, let me know what it is. Like Victor, Tokumbo, Oba.
Sorry, for me, I'm not a nurse, but
Yes.
part
Yeah.
of part of with the little knowledge I know about Scrum, and I just want to verify. So where I work closely with the legal department.
Yeah.
They have a lot of cases to take to court, which I
Yeah.
cover.
Mm.
So at the end of the day, if they have challenges, I come in and I report to the senior officer.
Yeah.
So when I look at my role at times, it's more or less like a scrum master.
Yeah.
Because each morning I meet up with them in the office.
Yeah.
What's
You find
going
out
on?
what's happening. What are the
What are we
updates?
going today? Any
Yeah.
challenges? So if they tell me any challenges verbally, I don't need to write any letter. I'll just go and tell
Yeah.
the person in charge that, oh, this place, they are traveling to this course, they need a car, this is the challenge, blah, blah. That is all I do.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's a good point in the sense that you're more or less like the glue that holds everybody together, right?
Yes.
So you want to make that handshake between stakeholder and then the delivery team, which is more or less. So your delivery team, depending on the structure of the organization, right? So you would have, my team has a product owner / product manager, 2 product managers, because it's a big product. Then there's me. I handle 3 teams. But I mean, so this is what they're basically made of. So there's the product owner / product manager. There's me, the delivery / scrum master, and then there's the development team, which consists of the engineers, the QA people. So your QA is basically people who test things before you take them to production, more or less like quality control, right? So it's like talking about someone has written a draft, right? You just don't send that draft out to the court, right? Someone has to review it and give a final sign off
Yes.
before it goes. So that's more or less like quality control, quality of software tester, quality assurance engineer, right? So those people make sure that before anything goes to what the customer can see, they do a test, make sure that it's okay for consumption before they send out, right? And then you have your DevOps people, depending on the structure of your team. We'll take a look at these roles and their roles as well. So your DevOps person is basically someone who takes whatever your engineer has done and then the QA has okayed, and then they push into the live environment, right, for people to see and then for people to use, right? So that's basically it. That's how delivery works. You get stakeholder requirements, your engineering team builds it, your QA team reviews it, and then your DevOps team, pushes to production environment or makes it go live, like we like to say. Right. So that's big. So I mean, once again, yeah, like the glue that holds everybody together, especially as a product, as a Scrum Master / delivery / project manager. So that's basically it. There's a lot of work out there for you guys in terms of Scrum Master roles, and it pays well.
But
Yes,
sorry,
go ahead.
most job description I see is basically tech related. I think it's
Yeah,
only
so
one
that's why you're here.
okay, because it's only ones I've seen a Scrum role for a Lego department. It's only once.
Yes. Yeah, so that's why you're here, right? Because most of the jobs in Scrum. So the whole idea behind Scrum was to say, look, I will take a look at waterfall versus agile as well. The whole idea for Scrum stroke agile was to say, look, it takes excuse me, it takes us years to deliver something in production, right? Why do we want to do that? Why not we break it down into smaller chunks, right? So for example, you want to build an app or you want to build an interface that allows people to sign in the mornings when they resume work, right? So you can break it down into different chunks and say the first prototype that we'll send out or the first thing we'll send out that people can use is to allow them be able to sign in via their emails, right? Because it's easy to do. And then you say, okay, that's part one, right? That's by 1.0. In another 2 weeks' time or in another 3 weeks' time, you are saying, look, what we want to do in the next 2 3 weeks is to make sure that people can now sign in with their key cards or people can now do biometrics, right? So you continue to break the whole product down. And then a product is a going concern, is a living element. Because you've developed a product doesn't mean that's the end of that life cycle, right? I'm sure if not all of us use banking apps, right? And I don't want to believe that your banking app doesn't have updates or new features all the time. I hope I'm correct.
All right.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
yeah, so that's because that product is a going concern. You will continue to add things into it. You continue to add features into it. You would always have bugs. Maybe customers that can't send money to a particular bank. So you have to go back to the team and review what's happening, find the problem, fix it, and then take it back into production, right? So I mean, those things would always happen. So your product is always a going concern. So your job as delivery / scrum master / project manager is to make sure that those going concerns are converted into value for your customers, right? And because at the end of the day, the most important person is your customers. If that customer doesn't get value at the end of the day, then I mean you wouldn't be in business, right? So that's typically it. So I mean, Scrum Master, Agile Coach, Product Owner. Your Product Owner is a person who gathers the necessary requirements and say, okay, look, um, this product is a remittance app for people to send money to Nigeria. What are the things people want to see? Can we build this? Do we have the resources and requirements to build this? And then they do their surveys, the research, user experience, user stories, and then the team builds it, right? So, and then I mean there are industry specific project managers, from IT project managers to healthcare project managers. The whole idea behind project management is to be able to see that whatever strategy or whatever plan that the company has can translate into tangible and visible services and products for that add value to the lives of their customers. So that's basically it. Once again, yeah, like the glue that holds everyone together. So your job is a very, very important one as we go along. So yeah, so that's an overview. Next week we'll start to dive into what it is, what it takes. We'll first of all take an overview of project management, so different angles what project management is, and from there we'll then start to dive into Agile, take a look at the different roles, the product owner, to start taking a look at what the backlog is, what the sprint backlog is. We'll take a few examples and then we'll take it from there. Yeah. Any questions, guys? Mo, Oba, Tokes, Victor, Deborah is a bit indisposed. So happy to take your questions. Any questions at all? So.
Okay, let's assume on a lighter note, let's assume this is a project to get a sponsorship job when I get to UK.
Yeah.
Apart from the models here, what extra things do I need to do? Is it to watch a movie? Is it to read a book that I need to get a job? Let's say I'm giving myself this project 12 weeks to get a job in UK.
Okay, so I think
need
the other thing that you might want to consider is probably just getting some sort of certifications, and there are two options when it comes to we'll discuss that in the class as well. So you can either go the PSM1 route, which is usually tricky, which is an exam, right? Or you go the CSM1 route, cost more, but it's just an online class, and then you get, usually happens in a day, and you get a certificate at the end of the day. And that adds to your permit me to use the word credibility as a Scrum Master. Most organizations in the UK ask for either of the two. So yeah.
I made attempt on PSM once, and I think
Yeah,
I
it's
got 58, and the
it's
cutoff
bad, right?
was 72.
The cutoff is now 85.
It's now 85.
Yeah, so the cutoff is 85. The PSM1 route is cheaper, but it's harder. Present, yeah, so it's cheaper, but it's harder, right? So most people prefer to go for the CSM1 route. That is basically just a class like this, but over a day period.
But CSM, you have to renew it every 2 years.
Yeah, but necessarily, so the whole idea about Agile is nobody's going to ask you if you have a renewed certificate. The whole idea is to know, do you know the job? Can you apply, the mindset or the framework into a project? That's the most important part, right? So, so I mean, each of them has its pros and cons. For the PSM1, you don't need to renew it. Once you have it, you have it. And which is why people tend to go for it, right? Because it's a mindset. Your mindset just doesn't disappear over time. You tend to apply that mindset to your job as you go along. But for the CSM, you say, look, renew it. And renewing doesn't mean you take another class, right? It's just basically just taking like more or less like refresher courses to accumulate your PDUs, your professional development unit, and then you pay some for it, right? So, but it's not, doesn't mean that you don't know the work anymore. You don't know, you don't have the tools to do your job anymore. Some people say it's just a way of them making their own money. Of course, everyone has to generate revenue. So, right, yeah. So the same way the PMP generates, you renew after I think 3 or 5 years now. You generate, it's basically just a way of them generating money. Deborah, yes, please go ahead.
Sorry. So by the end of this course, are we going to get any certificate?
Yes, the school will issue you a certificate. There's also a mentoring session when you start, also help to tailor your CVs for Scrum Master roles, and then maybe some coaching sessions so as to when you start getting interviews, how to answer interview questions when it comes to Scrum Master roles. Yeah.
Okay.
But is this an old hand or a new one?
Yeah, hello. Sorry?
I was asking if this is an old hand or a new hand.
Oh no, is okay. So what I want to ask is also in line with what Deborah just asked.
Yeah.
So the CSI exams, are you guys going to be the one setting it, or we need to register for it separately?
No, it's a separate institution that does that. The same way if you're traditional, it's the same way ICANN works, right? So you have to
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So
okay, so do we need it? Because the whole essence of transition is to get a job. So that's the key word here. So in order for us, maybe after everything, we've got a CV and all.
Yeah.
So is it a must? We must go for that exam first before
I mean,
we can.
You can pace yourself. You don't necessarily have to, but some every now and then organizations would ask you. I mean, I didn't get mine until 3 years after I started doing Agile, so not necessarily. So you don't necessarily need it, but there's also a cheaper option which I'll share with you guys. Way cheaper option, and that is open book as well. A lot of people tend to go that route. So you guys can take that. So commodities for you as well. A lot you can take that route, and then it's also recognized as well. So you can take that route, and that costs. I think it costs less than $100. You can take that route and then show that you have some certification to back up your knowledge that you gained. I hope that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So when we get there, then we can
When we
have
get
that
to that bridge,
discussion.
we'll cross it. Yeah. It's an open book exam. I know
Yeah,
quite a lot
that's
of people
great.
take it, yeah, so.
So
But
good.
the thing with open book is the thing with open book exams is you have to know where to search before so, and then you only have limited time to take your exam. But yes, it's an open book and you can take it anytime. And I think you have one retry option if you fail the first time. So a lot of people are going for that in the industry as well. So even if it's just one that you take, I mean, you can take it and then gives some sort of credence or some sort of backing. Let me use that word to your knowledge of Agile. So, Kumar, yes, you want to ask a question?
No, I don't have any question to ask. Maybe I think you were trying to address what I said about 12 weeks. What do I need to do? Which extra miles do I need to do? I think that was
so
what you...
extra mile basically, I mean, it's just be in class, right? I mean, follow the process. Know the things know how to use Jira, which will be taking a look at. Know how to assign tasks in Jira because you use it on your job. If when you do get that, most organizations use Jira. 90% of the organizations that I know use Jira to do their agile work and their Scrum work. If you are doing Kanban, we'll take a look at Trello. Kanban basically just means you moving items, work in progress, and so that people don't have too many things in progress, right? But I mean, so just know.
I have a
Sorry?
little idea. I have a little idea on Jira.
Yeah, I mean, so we'll take it a bit. Hopefully, the class will take it a bit further. We'll see how to take a look at. So Jira isn't so complicated. It's pretty straightforward. It's basically just you putting descriptions into things that you are working. You can add to your skill by learning a few automations, but nothing out of the ordinary, right? So, and then there's a marketplace for you to add items. Maybe you want to track what people have done. You can use it to create filters, etc.
Matrix.
Yeah, so but nothing. The most important thing, I mean, as someone starting up, they won't expect you to be a full Jira professional. The most important part is be able to use Jira to track. If someone asks you what's happening on this project, you can quickly go into Jira and look out the last comment dropped by the engineer or by the QA person, and you can easily report that, right? So yeah, so that's basically knowing how it works and how you can use it to manage projects, how you can use it to assign tasks to people, basically. Right. Any other questions? Anybody
Just
else?
one.
Yes.
What about Prince 2 Foundation or the
Yeah,
other
so
one?
Prince 2 is your typical project management, right? The foundation basically does. So for Prince 2, the problem with Prince 2 is, yeah, I know it's famous in the UK, right? And that's if you want to do a traditional project manager role. From my experience and research, what you're starting to have in the UK is experience around Agile, especially as you go into technology, transitioning into tech, as you go into technology roles. The Prince 2 exam is around, I'm not sure if it has changed, it's around 300. So there are two exams, right? The foundation and the practitioner exam. Once again, it's a way for these organizations to make money. Foundation exam is around, I think, 300 quid. I'm not sure if that has changed. And then the traditional exam is around maybe 350 or 400 quid as well. So that you give or take, that's like 600, 700 pounds for exam. But the most important part is for you to be able to show, and this is also from experience, right? To show that you can do the work, right? Irrespective of the certification that you do. And you can only show that two ways. First of all, getting your your leg into the door, which will be, priming your CV to be able to do that. And then once you start to, and then being able to communicate this, properly when you're doing your interviews. But notwithstanding, yes, we're going to take the Agile class, but we're also going to take a look at what, the whole project management journey. We'll take a look at project charters and the rest, and then we'll see how project management works from end to end, initiation, planning, execution, the documents you need, and the rest. I hope I answered your question more.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other question? Anybody else? All right, so I'm guessing we are good. Okay, let me just quickly share this as some foundation, and we'll take it from there. Let me know if you guys can see what I'm sharing. Can we see this?
Yes.
Great. All right. So project management is the process of planning, organizing, executing, and controlling resources to achieve specific goals within a time frame, budget, and scope. So what that means is you want to build a payment app, or you want to build a fintech app, right? Which is a product, right? So you set out the plan, and then you start to execute, right, within a time frame. So let's say you want to launch in December, and you start to put milestones to that. The milestone is a deliverable. So a milestone can be, we want to launch in December, right? A milestone can be by August, or by end of August, we want to have a working MVP of that product, and then we've started pilot testing, right? So that's like what a milestone means. It involves tasks like defining project requirements, the things you need, creating a project plan, you're managing risks, and ensuring project deliverables are met, right? So, like I was saying, this is where your PM falls into place, your Prince 2 falls into place. You have the waterfall model, which, so for some industries, obviously, this still works, right? So for the construction industry, this will still work in the sense that, so for example, you can't show anybody that you built the foundation. You need to be able to show something, right? So you need to be able to, first of all, get the land, once you've gotten the land, get your quantity surveyor and your architect to build you something, and then you start to build your foundation. Make sure that it's not, if it's in a swampy area, you do your German floor, your German foundation, and then your rafting and all of that stuff, right? To make sure it's solid. And then until you build, you do your electricals, do your plumbing, do your finishing, painting, and all of that, right? So for some industries, this is still involved, right? This is still in play, right? Even in the tech sector, some maybe, especially when it comes to an enterprise application where you're building maybe core banking applications, right? This still comes into play, right? But then the other way is, especially when you're building products, and which is where you guys want to be, as this is the future going forward. So we'll take a look at these tools, the different agile values, responding to plan, responding to change over following the plan, which is what waterfall tells you, right? Don't deviate from the plan. But Agile says if there's an issue, you want to quickly go back, fine tune it, and then go back into production, right? Agile also says customer collaboration over contract negotiation. What that means is the most important part is hearing feedback from the customer, right? Making sure that, like they say, customer is always key, right? Making sure that whatever the customer, the value add that needs to be added to the customer is done and done well, right? So Agile also says working software over comprehensive documentation. What that means is the most important thing is for the software to work. Yes, we get documentation, right? But the most important thing is to make sure that customers can go into their applications or their products or their services or the applications that they use, and it works. They don't have to call you to say this thing is not working. And Agile makes that possible. Agile also says, lastly, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. What that means is collaboration is key when it comes to Agile. You guys need to communicate, which is why I said, the skills that comes from whatever industry that you guys are working in, or whatever job roles or job functions that you guys are working in, are also key as well, right? Especially when it comes to communication and people management. You need to be able to communicate, you need to be able to interact over whatever process it is that that you guys have internally as a company, right? And then these are the the key differences. Agile is iterative and incremental. What that means is, because you've delivered a value today doesn't mean you are not going to deliver a value in the next 2 to 3 weeks, right? You need to continue to deliver value to the customer, especially where in a place like the tech industry where switching costs are literally zero these days, and customers can easily switch platforms, right? So for example, in the banking industry, where you don't have to go into the banking hall to start to fill an application form and all of that. Now the digital banks have made life a whole lot easier, and then you can onboard within 5 to 10 minutes. You have your name. If you're in Nigeria, you have your BVN. The other parts of the world, in the US, you need your social security number. In the UK, you need your date of birth and maybe your passport ID. And then you can get onboarded almost as fast as possible. So Agile says that for you to be able to do that, the waterfall model will take a longer period of time for you to deliver value. But Agile says we can start to deliver value as much as 1 month or 3 weeks, or as much as 4 weeks, right? So that's what Agile means. So arranging teams and tools, need to optimize production, concepts. So basically Agile says, we want to be able to make sure that we're delivering value. So your product owner or product manager is gathering requirements, they are planning the sprint on how to do the work, they are collaborating with team members on how to do the work, you're creating and implementing, and then you're deploying and reviewing and monitor to the environment. Benefits: constantly increase the adaptability to changing requirements. You don't want to wait to the end of the project or to the end of 4 weeks to see, because you are working on something. You always want to quickly go back to the drawing table, fix whatever the issue is, and take it back to the customer within a week, within 2 weeks, less than, depending on how your team is structured, right? So I mean, there's a ton of, and these are just one of few of them. There's a ton of benefits when it comes to Agile software development. So sprints, like we said, iterations. So like I said, it's broken down into short time box cycles. We'll take a look at it. Sprints, so your sprint, which is where I was saying I will take a look at what it means to have a sprint backlog, right? So are we going to deliver this in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks? For this 3-week period, what do we want to deliver, right? What do we want to do? What value do you want to add to the customer? Customers have complained that they can't download their statement, so let's fix that in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Customers are saying they can't transfer to a certain bank. Let's try to do the groundwork on that, and then maybe they're trying to do a transfer from Barclays to NatWest, Barclays to Royal Bank of Scotland, and your Barclays banking app doesn't have that bank included, and you guys have been getting a lot of requests for that. I mean, so you now start doing the groundwork. What do we take for us to be able to integrate to, the Royal Bank of Scotland to be able to deliver, make people do transfers into that region? Or you have a remittance app, maybe you're sending money back home to Nigeria or Ghana or wherever it is, and you find out that you can only send to certain banks. Maybe you can only send to GTE or send to First Bank or Stanbic, right? And then there've been a lot of requests. The the product owner has now done a survey to say, okay, what other banks are you guys looking at? And then on top of that survey, they found out that out of 200 people that answered the survey, right, and I used the app and religiously to send money back home, 90% of that survey want to send money to maybe a Kuda bank or an OPay, because maybe a lot of their people use OPay and Kuda bank. And then so your job as a product owner is now to start looking at, okay, how long will it take us to deliver this, right? What's the groundwork that needs to be done for us to be able to do this? Can we do this in 2 weeks, or how many sprints of 2 to 3 weeks would help us deliver this, this item? And then your backlog basically means that the list of items that you have, a living item. So you continue to do your surveys, continue to gather data, and then put it into your backlog, right? So another way to describe this, simpler way to describe this is to say you have a laundry basket, right? And you've dumped all your clothes inside. So 1 week you say, look, this week I want to wash just my whites, right? Next week I'm going to wash all the colored, or this week I want to wash all my undergarments. Next week I'm going to wash, my scrubs. Or this week I'm just going to wash my scrubs and my undergarment. Next week I'll wash, maybe because I have heavy shifts this week. Next week I'll just wash a few things that I need. Since I'll be at home, I won't have any shift. I'll be able to wash all my clothes, right? So that's how what a backlog and a sprint backlog means, right? A daily stand-up meeting basically means you finding out what was done the previous day, and what you're going to do today, and then what are the issues that you need to resolve, something similar to what Tokumbo mentioned. And then user stories. User stories are basically high-level descriptions of functionalities from users' perspective. What does the user want to see? So as on our remittance app, the user wants to say, so your user story will look something like, I want to be able to send money to Kuda Bank so that I can send money to my relatives who use Kuda Bank, right? And then you break down all of the things that are required for you to be able to deliver. What's the definition of done? How do you deliver this? What do you need to do to achieve this particular tasks? And I did mention earlier that so mostly when it comes to Agile, two popular ones, right? Scrum and Kanban, right? So most popular framework, and it contains the product owner, the Scrum Master, and then the dev team, and then we'll take a look at that. We'll look at the ceremonies as well, the sprint planning, basically what we want to do, your daily stand-up, which we just looked at, your sprint review basically means what we did in the past 2 to 3 weeks, how much of it did we achieve, or were we able to achieve something, and then what it looks like. And then your sprint retrospective is what we did, what went well, what did not work well. What did not work well could be, say, we had to wait for the designer from the other team. We don't need that going forward. So we need to try and see how to hire our own internal designer, or we speak to the design team to assign somebody to us, right? So that's an example of what did not work well. Or another thing could be we didn't get our access early. It's taking time for accesses to deploy to production to get to DevOps team. So next sprint, you want to try to see how to tackle and resolve that so that it doesn't become an issue in that particular sprint or next sprint going forward. For Kanban, basically means you making sure that engineers are not taking on too much work. Basically broken down into to do in progress. Sometimes you'd have something called blocked, right? Because that particular item has not been resolved. And then once it gets resolved, you move it to a review and then done, right? So basically, those are the two frameworks that we'll be taking a look at as an Agile project manager. So I hope I made some sense with this, and let me know if there are any questions. Any questions, guys? Mo, Oba, Tokumbo, Praise, Victor, Deborah.
I have a question.
Please go ahead.
We hear of ChatGPT AI.
Yes.
Is it a lazy shortcut to use it in your role as a PM or a Scrum Master, or it's something one needs to know?
I mean, so it's not lazy. It depends on what you use it for, right? So there's actually a course. I'll probably share that on Slack for you guys. There's a course, forgotten that course, generative AI for project managers. That the project, it's an interest. It's something that you should take, right? So it helps. It would help your job, right? You can use it to do your sprint retrospective. There's quite a handful of things you can use it for. I use it every now and then for some things. Maybe I'm trying to get documentation done and I'm not sure of the words to use. So I just enter my prompt into it and then it helps me to generate ideas that I eventually use. Right. So it's not a lazy way. It depends on how you use it and what you use it for. You don't want to use it word for word. You also have to, you also want, so basically it helps you to generate ideas. You can use it to generate ideas. So you can say, how do I handle retrospective? And give me a fun way to handle a retrospective session, right? So and then they'll generate ideas for you. Or give me an idea of how to handle the next review sessions, seeing that we didn't deliver much, right? So it gives you idea on how you can. There's a course, there's a free course by the Project Management Institute for generative AI for project managers. I'll share that on the chat group and you guys can take it. Usually it takes like an hour for you to get it done. I'm sure it will be helpful. Excuse me.
Okay. But the whole thing is confusing because there was a time about this AI thing. I know AI makes things easy.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing I've read about companies laying a lot of people. Okay, this one of these Scrum Master founder, I think Sunderland.
Yeah.
I watched one of this content on LinkedIn, and they asked him, "Is Scrum going to an end?" And he said from his research that the likes of Google and other companies that laid off Scrum Masters, that was because they didn't have AI knowledge. So I was confused that this thing is more or less like copy and paste. I know you could manipulate it. You could tell AI to explain something to you in a fourth grade with a fourth grade knowledge.
So what we have to understand is AI is here to stay, right? So we first of all have to understand that, right? There's a lot of hype about it, but it's here to stay, right? Especially, I mean, AI can do you a lot of good if you know how to use it, if you use it properly. There's also a lot of ethical issues involved. Yeah, Victor, go ahead before I continue.
Okay, sorry. My question is about the AI thing this person spoke about now.
Yeah.
Before AI came into existence, like we've had project managers, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about getting user stories actually.
Yeah.
Because I feel like how do you even think of 100% of the things that these users, I mean end users now are going to be expecting from the application? Because sometimes you get to miss out some things. Do you kind of put out surveys or something as a project manager? How do you even generate these user stories, for example?
Yeah, so for user stories, right? Yeah, so for user stories as a product owner, and that job is done by a product owner / manager, right? You have to interact, you have to do research, you have to check competition, right? You have to find out basically more ways for you to generate revenue and that's it. So basically you're trying to make the life of of your users easier. And I gave an example, right? An example was, you did a survey and then you found out that 90% of the people on your platform want to send money to Kuda Bank or OPay, but your remittance app doesn't have that option, right? AI didn't tell you that. You did that by conducting your usual surveys and focus groups and questions, right? So what you can do with AI in that regard is to see how you can fine-tune the user story creation for that. And they are not just going to dump it word for word. AI will give you an idea. It is your job as a product owner to see, okay, this is what AI has given me and this is my reality. How do I find a balance between the two, right? How do I go ahead to do the job that I want to do? Victor, yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, just recently there was this project management kind of voluntary group that I joined.
Yeah,
So we kind of split ourselves into groups because I was
mm,
trying to understand more about project management.
yeah,
And we have people from different roles like business analyst
yeah,
and you have PMO, you have the project manager, the project
yeah,
coordinator, and the likes of
yeah.
them. Like, how do they work together? Now we are coming here as to learn project management.
Yeah.
How, what's the function of a business analyst, for example? To
Okay.
my own knowledge, while we were working then, we were trying to work on an app, though it kind
Yeah.
of ended. And
Yeah.
the more of these user stories were done by the BAs as at that time.
That shouldn't be the
So
case. Yeah.
yeah, so I want to just have an understanding of what these roles,
A business
how they
analyst
kind
is.
of interact. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So
How
your
they are.
business
Okay.
analyst and your, I mean, in an ideal situation, right, your business analyst should work as a project manager. Right? Sorry, not as with your project manager. And I say this because the job of your business analyst is to be able to elicit requirements and find out what's from a user perspective, right? That job shouldn't really be done by a project manager. But most often than not, companies that can afford to hire a BA often say, project manager should be able to do, requirement gathering. I mean, which is typical, right? But ideally, your business analyst is one who, gathers requirements, puts that requirement into a workflow for you, right? To see the user journey, right? And your product manager is, or your product owner is someone who does who make sure that that product or that product is has a life of its own. What do I mean, right? So I'm sure you all have banking apps, right? So a typical case is a Barclays banking app. That is a product on its own, right? It would have a product owner, right? If it's big enough, it would have 2 to 3 product owners, right? I have a product in my office that has 4 product owners slash managers. One, because it's a big product, right? It's very, very big. And we found out that giving that job to one product owner would only cost while. So what do we do? We broke it down into different aspects. So, but they all work together, right? So this particular aspect has a product owner, but it will still be product owner for this product, but then a sub part of it, right? So like your Barclays banking app is a product on its own, right? Making sure that that banking app continues to work the way it should work is the job of that product owner, right? Making sure that people deliver what your product owner and your product manager slash product manager has found out, or based on the surveys and research that they've done, is the work of you and then your development team. Victor, I hope that makes sense.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you.
So that's the work. So it's everybody would work hand in hand, and typically you won't see a lot of BAs in 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 the field anymore. A lot of them are mostly converting into either product managers, product owners, because their work tend to overlap, right? There's a lot of overlapping in their work, but a lot of project managers are starting to spring up. So sometimes they transition into product owners or they transition into project managers, right? Um, so yeah, so like I said, I'll take it again. Your product is like a banking app. Your job as a product owner to make sure that, so if anything happens, you'll be the first person on the lips of, so who's the product owner for this job? What's happening? What are the issues? And then that product owner comes to meet you and the engineering team to say, look, let's say Tokumbo is a Scrum Master and that works with Praise and Debra, and that I said, Tokumbo, what's happening? What are the issues? Okay, this is the issue. How long will it take us to fix? You get your requirements, you get the fix, communicate that back to necessary stakeholders, communicate that back to customers as well. Tell them that you're working on it and you have it resolved as soon as possible. Like I said, once again, communication is key. You need to be able to communicate accordingly across all cadres as much as possible. I hope that was clear, Victor.
Yes, yes. Thank you, sir.
Right, great. Any more questions before we call it today? All right, so next week, 10 to 12, let's start to I mean, it's going to be, it's not, project management is not rocket science. It's pretty straightforward. So we'll take a look at an overview about project management, what the project management is, the skills, difference between waterfall and agile, and then we'll start to do, trickle down into agile as we go forward. I will share that AI course on Slack. I mean, you guys can, take that before your next class. It's just like an hour session, and you can take that.
So making two things you're going to share with us.
What's the second one? It was just one, the AI generated
We
course.
talked about Jira, so you share something like that. You said something about sharing initially before we talked about AI, but I can't remember.
No, so for Jira, that would be, so I'll sync with Yomi to start creating maybe Jira access for you guys so that, when we start, we don't have to wait.
Okay.
All right.
All
right, guys. Let's have a good day, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you.